August 3rd card is quite a big event, so you would expect that something like this would call for a post-fight reaction, which is what we're having right now. So I got to tell you, Terence Crawford has now hit his highest stride in his career in terms of monetary gain. Well, why? Prior to the Errol Spence fight, one of the biggest problems that you had going on with Terence Crawford was just the simple fact that Terence Crawford was not a big pay-per-view draw. And in fact, unfortunately, he sort of blamed the idea of him not being able to sell as much based on the lack of promotion or promotional malpractice of none other than Bob Arum. And you can debate amongst yourselves about who was really at fault there. Was it Terence Crawford's fault? The fact that he did not really address the issue of which he needed to go out there and promote himself, like most fighters that have this sort of problem. Or was it the fault of Bob Arum, who wasn't as boisterous and as loud and as obnoxious as Eddie Hearn is in terms of going out there and really putting out their fighters for everything that they feel that they are worth, right? And Eddie Hearn has not done that. But after the Errol Spence fight, Crawford is in a position where you cannot deny his worth. Now, is he a pay-per-view star in all true to God honesty? No, not even the Errol Spence fight. And you could argue that maybe perhaps the Errol Spence fight did as much as it could just based on the fact that he had a dance partner. Crawford is just one of those guys that needs a dance partner in order for him to gain a massive attention that he deserves in the talent that matches of who he is. Here's the problem, though. The problem with Terence Crawford is that he doesn't want to go out and promote himself in a way that, let's say, Raleigh does, in a way that Conor McGregor does. He doesn't want to go out there and promote himself in a way that will garner him either negative or positive attention. And by the way, both of those are as equally important to each other, whether it's both negative or positive. The guys that can garner the attention of both negative and positive, I gotta tell you, they really know how to gather up a crowd to come and support them. With Terence Crawford, you can only feel one way about him. You can either feel that he is the hero, which is, by the way, most of the time in most of his fights, he's never the heel, he's never the bad guy. And even Errol Spence came into this fight as the bad guy. But what Terence Crawford now has is a partnership with the Saudi government. And I'm going to tell you that in this case, pay-per-view numbers don't matter. Bud Daniel here says, Bud has to dominate in this fight by early stoppage or schooling him from the early opening bell, or else he won't be relevant moving up. You're absolutely correct on that. And by the way, there are guys like Usyk, which by the way, I'm going to get to in this particular stream, guys like him that have had problems moving up a weight class. And John Jones may have that same similar problem, but he ran across one heavyweight that was a great matchup for him, but was high enough ranked coming off of a loss in a championship fight to justify his undisputed championship. For one, I just think a lot of guys move a lot slower when they move up. Now, with Terence Crawford, is this the case? We don't know. We know how he looks from a 135er going into 147, but what about 154? Because there are certain limits certain guys have, such as Canelo with Arthur Beterbiev. I'm sorry, not Arthur Beterbiev, his opponent, Bivol, who he's facing. So there are certain limits that guys will face. And Bud Crawford, this could be his limit. You never know. But you also have to understand this Israil guy is used to fighting top-level competition and has never really ducked anyone, nor did he ask for any journeyman fights, which, by the way, really makes him dangerous in that particular instance. So here's something that I think is really important to understand. Why the pay-per-view numbers in this particular fight doesn't matter. Because the Saudis, what they're looking for straight off the bat is tourism, long-term investments. Also, you got to take into consideration that they may be running out of oil in the future and they need to create a different revenue. So Daniel 2118 says here, Bivol versus Beterbiev is such an epic fight. I can't wait for it. Yes, Israil looked great in his last fight also. So, okay. That's very important to understand. Thank you, Daniel, for your comment and your contribution. And for all of you those that are tapping in right now, don't forget to like and subscribe, comment, and let me know what you guys think. Add on to the show. Don't let me just be the one doing all the talking, although I don't mind. Because here's the thing. Most guys, they start a stream, and what they do is they want to cook it up first. No, not me. Once that live button hits, I'm going to give you some high dopamine newsworthy clips that you need to hear. Here's one. Conor McGregor is now emulating Ryan Garcia going into this fight, thinking that perhaps maybe that he has a chance drinking and not training as hard as Ryan Garcia. And I want to address that first and foremost before I address other topics at hand. For one, let's see here. Daniel says here, I do enjoy your content, man. I'm glad the algorithm sent me to you. Yes, thank you to the algorithm that's sending me this way. You know, I think YouTube wants to see that you're hardworking enough to get in here and do the damn thing, and here I am. So let me explain why I believe that it is really in Conor's head that he can go out here like Ryan Garcia. For one, you got to understand something, and this is something I have to address. With Ryan Garcia, he has trained his whole entire life to get ready for this particular boxing match. With MMA, I think it's a little bit harder to get away with not training as hard when there's a lot of catching up to do that you always have to do in MMA. And what do I mean by that? Well, for one, Ryan Garcia is in a sport where he literally just does one thing. And what is that? All he does is punch all day long. And therefore, he's going to perfect it in a way that, let's say, a mixed martial artist is never going to perfect the type of punches that he has going on. So as a result, people like Ryan Garcia can get away with not training as hard, coming in drunk, in whatever capacity that they feel they can get away with, in ways that you just can't get away with MMA. Because with MMA, there's too many variables. You're always catching up to something. At some point, Ryan Garcia became a much more decorated amateur than Devin Haney, whereas with Devin Haney, he just decided, hey, you know what? I'm going to take my pro career early on, and that's that. So in other words, Ryan Garcia didn't need to play catch-up. In MMA, you got to play a lot of catch-up. You grew up as a boxer? Great. Now you got to catch up on your wrestling, takedown defense. And once you get that mastered, now you got to work on you taking down the other guy yourself, aside from just stuffing takedowns all day. Now it is you that has to do that. So that is a catch-up in and of itself. You grew up doing jiu-jitsu? Great. You got to get in there and do boxing rounds. You grew up doing Muay Thai? Great. You got to get in there and do Taekwondo rounds. Yes, because you got to learn how to feel what it feels like when you're taking on highly elusive fighters and how that is going to affect your style in terms of a Muay Thai fighter or whatever style that you grew up on that is going to be foreign to what is going to be presented in front of you. Constant catch-up. In boxing, you can get away with it. So, in terms of Conor McGregor, he's looking at this and saying, aha, there is a way that I could just get away with drinking all the time, because guess what? Here's the thing, right? You got to understand something. Most fighters, it's very easy for them to say, you know what? I'm not going to drink. Very easy. But try being Conor McGregor, who owns a liquor label. Not only does he own it, it is really attached to the idea that he drinks this on a daily basis so that this way his alcoholic fans or alcoholics, period, can look at this and say, aha, you know what? I'm going to go buy some Proper 12. And then the sale goes up and the sale goes up. And the more that you're attached to that identity, the more that you are highly encouraged to keep up this behavior of being a drunk. So as a result, this is what you get. A Conor McGregor that will find any excuse that he can to get a drink in and then say, you know what, it's all right. I got this fight. This is Michael Chandler. Whatever it is that he has going on in his head that he feels may give him an advantage. And by the way, some of this is true. He's the bigger guy. This is another fight that is similar to Chad Mendes. He knows what it's like to get in there and fight Chad Mendes. And by the way, within circumstances that are not at 100%. So therefore, Conor McGregor is going to make up all these excuses in his head. He's going to look at Ryan Garcia and think to himself, you know what? Maybe, just maybe, a broken clock is correct twice a day. And why am I even mentioning a broken clock is right twice a day? Because just because you look bad in front of Gervonta Davis, it doesn't mean that you're going to look bad in front of, what's his name? Devin Haney. And obviously we've seen how that went down. He didn't look bad against Devin Haney. He looked great. Which, by the way, makes us wonder, was Devin Haney even in the same level as Tank Davis? Or is it that we just get these types of fights where it's really just a toss-up? Which is where I mean in the aspect of, hey, you know what? A broken clock is correct twice a day. What did Daniel here say? Hold on a second. Let me read what Daniel here says. So, Mendes doesn't have the same power or chin as Chandler, though isn't going to wrestle him, I don't think. Just my opinion. You're correct. I think Michael Chandler is going to have a very hyper machismo attitude about this whole entire fight. And he's going to say to himself, I'm just going to bang with Conor McGregor and prove that I'm a better striker. And that could be detrimental in the results that is going to happen in this matchup. So, what does he need to do? Michael Chandler, he needs to have everything all intact, right? Because, again, like I said, in MMA, there's too many variations, and you can't miss one particular variable that is going to be very important. And not only that, with the game of inches that it takes in both world-level boxing and both world-level MMA, and especially in MMA, he better have some wrestling in his repertoire going into this fight. Because otherwise, he's just going to be left vulnerable in a state where it's going to be very easy for him to get clipped by Conor McGregor. And playing into his game on top of that. But rest assured, please understand, there is a chance that Conor McGregor is going to somehow slack off in this particular training camp. Why? Because, look, it's one thing to have a good training session, okay? But have a good training session and then go home and eat healthy. That is one of the biggest problems most people that are not professional athletes have a problem with. And maybe even Conor McGregor, who at the point of his life right now may lack a little bit of discipline, because let's just be honest. For some guys, it allows some guys to garner more resources to make them better. For some guys, it just allows them to gain even more weight because now they have all this option of the type of different foods that they are able to eat. And what did Daniel here say? He said, a dirty brawl favors Chandler in this matchup where he needed to be clean versus Gaethje yet wasn't. The same style could win him the fight here, oddly enough. Okay, so yeah, that's very true. That's very true right there. What did he also say here? Can we all acknowledge that Ali did the crazy on right shit versus Liston? Yeah, he definitely did. Almost the same story. Ali got dropped in his last fight and was acting so wild. They did an evaluation on Ali pre-fight. Wow. Okay, yes, that's a very good comment right there. I didn't even think about that. But yes, Ali did that. And you know what? This is the beauty of combat sports, man. Is that the history of combat sports constantly repeats itself. And speaking of repeating itself, we're going to have a repetition of once again having an undisputed heavyweight champion First time in a long time in this century against Tyson Fury and Usyk. I'm going to give you my history repeats itself or at least mimics it. Definitely. That's definitely on the ball on that one. So here's something I want to add to this, right? Which I think is really important with Usyk and Tyson Fury. I want to give you my prediction right now. I'm going to give it to Fury straight off the bat. Why? Well, for one, I think that I mentioned earlier that Usyk is a lot slower than he ever was coming into the heavyweight division. When he was in the cruiserweight division, the fight that he had against Gassiev, it was great. Good footwork, constant movement in and out, constant elusivity, which made him very difficult to fight. So he wasn't fighting like this anymore in a heavyweight division. And I think that it's going to make him a slow-moving target. Whereas with Tyson Fury, let me tell you about this guy. This guy is 6'9" and can do exactly what Alexander Usyk has been doing in the cruiserweight division, which is what? Fight extreme elusivity. And not only that, move out of the way with a fast footwork motion that I think is going to be very difficult for Alexander Usyk to deal with. Familiar, which is why it's going to be a difficult fight nonetheless for Tyson Fury. But nonetheless, it's going to be a lot easier for Tyson Fury as the fights and the rounds go on and as he settles in with all his jabs and all of his height and reach advantage that he's going to use along with his attributes. So all of these things rolled into one. So I'm going to give it to Tyson Fury by decision. That's my final prediction for that one. And obviously for the weeks to come, I'm going to do more reviews and talk more about it and make more videos about it because it's going to be a hot trending topic. So get all the views while you can, right? So moving forward, what else did we mention here? All UFC talk. So obviously there's going to be new fights that are going to be added onto the Conor McGregor card, and also in the, I believe Jamal Hill is fighting. I'm not sure who his opponent is going to be, but Jailton Almeida is coming back. He's fighting Romanov. That's going to be a good fight. Good comeback fight after a loss against Curtis Blades. Sort of puts him back to where he belongs in the rankings, but at the same time, not much of a downfall. Okay, that's the best way to really describe it. So, what else? In this card, we obviously have the fight between Mayhem Miller. No, I'm sorry, not Mayhem Miller. Jarrell Miller. Different Jason Miller. Different Jay Miller that I'm talking about there. So, Jarrell Miller takes on Andy Ruiz. That's going to be a good heavyweight fight. These guys were very much friendly with each other. If you hadn't noticed, the way that they were approaching each other was just, I guess, just very friendly. And I don't know what you could really make out of that, right? Other than just the fact that, hey, you know, not all fights are made to be somehow controversial or, you know, or anything to that light. Sometimes some fights are just really about one thing, which is what? It's really just about competition, and they are in that particular spirit right now, and there's nothing really trash talking or bantering or smack talking from any of these two guys. What you see is what you get. It's a good matchup, and it's all part of the August 3rd card that is happening. But as time goes on, I'm going to talk more about those cards. I'm going to sign off for now. That's all that we have. Great fight for Terrence Crawford moving up a weight class. Really excited to see that one. Really excited to see how Conor McGregor is going to move forward with his camp after being inspired by Ryan Garcia. And then, of course, the undisputed heavyweight championship fight between Alexander Usyk and Tyson Fury. And more to come with the different content that I'm going to be dropping for you guys in the near future, inshallah.